Hello, this is my check-in with Orlando Furioso. It is a long-ass Italian poem written by Ludovico Aristo I think it was finally published in its completed form in 1532. He'd been working on it since like about 1506. It is a chivalric romance, which means kind of kind of adventures, but with kind of fantastic elements. Very much court love and kind of courtly love or courtly manners, chivalric. It's all concerning knights and their adventures. And by fantastic, I mean there's sorcerers and monsters. There's a hippogriff. There's sea monster. There's a great giant metal palace at the beginning. It is just sort of a hoot on that level. It is written in rhyming verse. I think it's 8 lines in a kind of a certain kind of repeating pattern, and then the very last 2 of those 8 lines are like AA. They rhyme together, so it gives it kind of a galloping and then kind of a stinger at the end of each line. And the Aristo very much, and the translator that specifically that I read this through, because I do not read Italian, Barbara Reynolds, make great effect of using that as sort of almost like kind of little punchlines or little pooms in there at the thing. It is a story that concerns Orlando. This is a sequel. This is you thought Hollywood invented the sequel. It's like, no, the sequels were going. This is a sequel to another poet's work called Orlando Immamorto, Orlando in Love, which was published posthumously in 1495, and I didn't write down the name of the poet for that, but it was such a popular work that someone was going to have to come along and take up the mantle to see if they could could continue this. And indeed, Ludovico Aristo seems to have done such a good job that it's overshadowed the original work, and that is very much considered the lesser work. I haven't read it, so I wouldn't know, but this is the one that seems to have gotten all the attention. So Orlando Furioso doesn't mean angry Orlando, but it means mad Orlando, someone who is driven mad, and he is driven mad by Orlando. Also, this gets into English. This is gets translated as Roland, which Roland is a figure that I should actually have a little graphics here to say, Roland, the romance of Roland and stuff like that in English and in French. But yes, Orlando has an unrequited love for a Saracen princess, Angelica. Now, this is all taking place on what seems to be completely fictitious invasion of the Saracens, non-Christians, into Charlemagne's Europe, and Charlemagne and all the knights under him are battling these heathens, I guess, or whatever you would call them. It's definitely the other. This is very much a clash of civilizations, a clash of others. But Orlando has fallen in love with Angelica, and has really wants to be with her. Angelica, not interested at all. She, at the beginning of this poem, flees, gets away. She had been captured and basically held as a prize that Charlemagne was going to have to decide which knight was going to get her, because Orlando was fighting with others, and he's like, okay, this is too much. But she escapes her protective custody and is making her own way back to her homeland. Yet another thing that I need to put down is, where is Angelica from? This is my rough thing, but yes, Saracen, and where from? Where from? Question mark. And so she is using any means necessary to get back. Tons of knights want to be with her, get with her, and she's using this to get back home while Orlando is pursuing her. Now, the cool thing about this poem, and the reason why it's such a long ass poem, is that it is not simply just that story of Orlando and Angelica. There is a multiple braiding of, it's an epic story, so there's multiple characters. Probably the most notable, especially for their mirror quality, is Ruggiero and Bradamante. Now, in that story, Ruggiero is a Saracen, and Bradamante is the Christian. She is a kick-ass Christian knight, a female knight. There's a couple of Christian female knights in this story, which is kind of interesting in itself. I guess it would be maybe considered a fantastical element in these stories, though I think there was actually, well, okay, I won't get into that. But in that story, their love is, they want to be together, and they're being stymied by outside forces. Ruggiero wants to get to be with Bradamante. He will have to convert to Christianity. There's a sorcerer Atlante who has foreseen that if he does convert to Christianity, he will soon die quite soon afterwards. So he's trying to keep them apart, and indeed there's a bunch of stuff. So they're trying to get together to oppose two figures from the opposing sides are trying to get together. Well, very much Orlando and Angelica. Angelica is trying to get the hell away from Orlando, who is just pursuing her. So there is that kind of 20, and there's just so much more of that kind of stuff that happens throughout the poem. Now, Orlando, in the end, this is a spoiler, he does go mad, and he goes mad because Angelica does choose somebody, and it's someone other than himself. And the fact that she does this drives him mad, that she has given herself to somebody else. And that's how far I've gotten in the poem. He has just gone mad. So I can't, comment specifically on that, but I wanted to pause and just sort of talk about various other little threads in this it's 38,736 line long epic poem. I've read the first book, which is 832 pages. That's cantos 1 to 23. And I will embark on the part 2, which is 800 pages, cantos 24 to 46. But I wanted to stop because I'm really digging the interesting commentary on of kind of male, basically kind of masculinity in this book, because it's knights and they're super powered, like they could be Marvel characters for how much they just cut and butcher through. I mean, it's super bloody Marvel. They're cutting and butchering people and stuff like that. But it's interesting how there's a lot of male anxiety throughout the book. I think I would start off with Ruggiero, who gets bewitched. He's carried away by a hippogriff, this winged creature, and taken to an island where he is bewitched by a sorceress named Alcina, and she makes him forget all about his love for Bradamante, and she kind of changes him in a way that I think is supposed to be like, oh my God, that's terrible. He is like a super warrior, but this is the description of how he is changed by Alcina. Canto 8, 54. A splendid chain he wears about his neck, glittering with gems. It reaches to his breast. 2 shining bracelets now his arms bedeck. Alas, once of all arms the manliest. 2 little threads of gold his earlobes prick, forming 2 rings, which the loveliest of pearls are hung, one dangling at each ear, finer than Indians or Arabs wear. 55. From curling tresses, scented with pomade, a costly and delicious fragrance came. So amorous was every move he made, it was as though, to his undying shame, a servile courtship all his life he'd paid to women of Valencia. His name alone remains unaltered, nothing else, so greatly is he changed by magic spells. So he is very much, there's a feminization thing going on here. There's the whole thing of he's wearing pearls finer than the Indians or Arabs wear. So he's also turned, he's also kind of changed kind of change form thing. He's got curling tresses. He's turned into a woman in a way in this. And indeed, when he gets when he gets um when he gets woken up from this spell, it's like numb before his senses spring to life straight away. Aware of his state, he is beside himself and longs for a deep hole in which to hide himself. So there's like, oh my god, whoa, how was I? Oh my god, I was turned girly, which is just sort of an interesting thing because while we have all these kind of really kick-ass, strong warrior women who are able to kind of pass, and indeed there's always this kind of revelation to the knights that they find, like, oh my god, I was bested by a woman. Indeed, later, much later on in the poem, there is a thing where Zerbin, which of course is a Scottish knight because, Zerbin is a Scottish name, he gets defeated by Marfisa, one of these other kick-ass knights. And the Zerbin asks the name of the knight who defeated him, and the crone, who we definitely hear about, that blow was dealt you by a maid, who has thus knocked you from a horse. And Zerbin, his cheeks are crimson, he averts his glance, and almost from his helmet on his head down to his greaves, his armor blushes red. Which is like, he was so ashamed, his armor blushes red. Which is like, it's just so awesome in its kind of vivid kind of comedic kind of imagery there of this thing. So we get, there's a lot of, it's just like, it's striking in this poem about how much male anxiety there is. And I think Aristo is doing it for the comedic effect, but I think there's sort of some sly undercutting going on here as well of, this is, the chivalric thing is like, this is stuff that you're telling people in power, people who are kind of styled themselves as knights, but you're also saying, you're kind of pushing it so far. Maybe you got something to feel a little kind of insecure about. Maybe there's the other little scene that I'll talk about is this little civilization of women, Cretan women originally, who have come to hate men. They get betrayed and dumped by some Greek men, which is, it's a whole story in itself. It goes back to Homer actually, and indeed they've set up their society, and they've been killing, murdering, and enslaving men for like 2,000 years. This is like a long-term thing where they have this little bay around Syria where shipwrecks have come, and they've basically said to men who've come, it's like, okay, you're either going to bend the knee and die or be enslaved, or your one chance is that you fight 10 of our best knights, kill them all, and you have to also sleep with 10 women all in one night. And if you can satisfy them and not be not get up, not be fall short of satisfying all 10 women, well, then you will let your companions live. You'll get to stay as a honored prince who rules us, but as our prisoner basically. And indeed, we learn that basically it was like 1 in 1,000 men actually was able to do all of this stuff from the current young knight who is doing the thing. But there's very much a thing of like, the men that are enslaved in this society run by women. All manly weapons are to men denied, save for a chosen group often, of course, who, as an ancient custom has ordained, permitted are to fight, as I explained. Those are the 10 knights that they have. And then the others at the distaff and the spindle, the comb, the needle, and the loom are found. Their strength diminishes, their spirits dwindle. Their garments are so long they sweep the ground. No masculine desires their bosoms kindle, as patiently they plow in fetters bound, or guard the flocks. Few males there are in all, scarce 1 in 10 without the wall. So they even the men who are in this society have been again have been sort of they've had their vitality drained out of them. Their spirits are dwindled. Their garments are so long they sweep the ground, which I assume again is sort of a thing. It's like they're wearing almost like they're wearing dresses. They have again, horrors of horrors, been feminized and are under the rule of women. So it's yeah, yet again it's kind of it's an interesting thing of how this society has how this poem has framed like terrible dangers that knights thing. And it's funny in this case, the end of the all this group of knights, the champion that ends up getting picked, well, she sort of picks herself, is Morfissa, this other kick-ass knight I've been talking about. She is the one of like, oh, I'll do this. Though it's like, well, okay, but then we get to sleeping with 10 women afterwards. You're not going to be able to do that, but they don't seem to be thinking that they're going to actually play along with this game. And there's also the implication that really none of the other guys would have been able to have beaten the 10 knights that were there. Marfissa makes short work of 9 of them, and then we learn about the 10th one, and it goes from there. So yeah, those are. I think I'll probably would leave it there. There's a whole thing with the crone Gabrina, who is like, she at this point is probably the most kind of despicable woman in the book, even more so than the Alcina. There's a lot more time spent on how she is a betrayer, a seductress, and all that stuff. That especially significant that she's a married woman. I think the whole thing of cuckoldry seems to be yet again another real concern for a lot of medieval stuff. It's very much control of offspring and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not going to go into that right now. So yeah, those are just some a few of the little details in this poem. This poem is just so crammed full of different stories and different adventures, and just how they weave together and how they comment on each other is a delight. It's one of these things of going back and rereading stuff actually raises this poem up in my estimation even more so, because it is just so it's deceptively straightforward, but then it's like it hops from story to story to story, and it does it in such a masterful way that you're suddenly like, oh shit, I'm in another story now, and oh, now I'm back to another one, or oh, I'm off to this one again. It is really delightful, and I can't wait to start it up again, which is what I plan to do after I publish this goddamn video. All right. I have been Jay. This has been me talking about Orlando Furioso, the Barbara Reynolds translation. Obviously, it's just an enthusiast's talk. Forgive me for all of the things I've gotten completely wrong in the poem, or about Ludvigo Aristo, including probably saying his name incorrectly. But yeah, it's just been really fun. I picked this up because of Tom at LA Books doing kind of a read along, and yeah, hopefully I'll get to see more videos by him on that. He's taken a little bit of a break. I'm not quite sure where he's at on that, but I hooray, he got me started. I'm very grateful for that. All right, I have been Jay. More videos later.